We're just about a month shy of GoFest starting this summer. I'm exceptionally excited because my GoFest t-shirt, hat, and stickers have arrived also. But there's even more news about GoFest being released recently. In an interview with MeinMMO, the global director of live events for Niantic gave some very interesting details about what we have to look forward to this summer. So in this video, we're going to take a look at what was said in the interview, as well as some other items that were discussed about what we have to look forward to after GoFest arrives. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, trainers. My name is Oro Chris. I am your catching coach. And if you're like me and like to get your news in video format rather than reading the articles yourself, this video is for you. So we are on mein-mmo.de. This was a German interview. If anything is lost in the translation, this was a Google translated article, originally in German, of course, and then translated using Google Translate. But the interview was with Michael Starenka. He is the director of global live events at Niantic, and he was asked a bunch of questions both about some recent news involving Pokemon Go, as well as what is in store for this summer's Pokemon Go Fest. And we're not going to cover everything that's in the article, just the highlights, the most important things that you need to know about. One of the first questions asked in the interview was, the Pokemon Go Fest 2020 is going to be big. Over 75 different Pokemon will appear. Can you give us an insight into possible spawns? Now, the answer from Mr. Starenka was not exactly the most eye-opening, but he did say that there were recent clues and Easter eggs in pictures and assets that have been produced thus far. So in prior videos, I will put a link up to a video where we covered the first poster that was announcing Pokemon Go Fest for this summer. There were several grass Pokemon included, as well as a reference to seeing you in the same park and under the same sky. We've previously discussed those topics here on the channel, but he's telling us here in his answer in the interview that there will be some clue as to the possible spawns based upon what has been produced in recent literature. He also tells us that the different habitats, and again those being water, fire, grass, fighting, and friendship, will be a good indication of what you can expect as far as spawns are concerned. Next, the interviewer asks, one of the highlights at the Go Fest is always the increased shiny rate. Will that also be the case in 2020? Michael responds, you know, we never talked directly about shiny rates or anything along those lines, but what I want to say is that players will be very happy with their shiny yield at the end of the event. Now, I'll put a link in the description down below to an article by TheSilphRoad, where some researchers at TheSilphRoad looked at shiny rates for event Pokemon. Shiny rates are not consistent across all species. They do vary, especially if they're a featured shiny Pokemon in raids. Those typically have a 1 in 10 to a 1 in 20 shiny rate chance. Full odds shinies in Pokemon Go is 1 in 405 to 1 in 450. Here, Starenka is only telling us that we're going to be happy with the results. Now, community day rates is typically 1 in 20 to 1 in 25 shiny rate for those encounters. Here, we can only hope that it would be that high, but we're definitely going to be looking at something boosted beyond what the typical 1 in 405 to 450 would be. Next, they ask specifically about regionals. Now, there's been some indication in recent literature that Seviper and Zangoose would be featured in this summer's Pokemon Go Fest. The interviewer here asks, every Go Fest or Safari Zone usually has a regional Pokemon. How does it look this year? Very direct question. And the response we get, it was definitely something that was a little challenging for us to think through. If you have a localized event, it's easy to pick a regional Pokemon that doesn't normally appear in that region. But if you have a global event, it is much more challenging because it should be fair for everyone, no matter where you play. You shouldn't get the feeling my regional Pokemon is featured and I'm not getting any new regional ones. So that was quite challenging. So then he asks specifically about Sengo and Vipadus. Sengo being Zangoose in German and Vipadus being Seviper. And as we can see here in the second published poster for Pokemon Go Fest, we've got Zangoose and Seviper featured. And I'm definitely excited about the answer by Michael. Yes, Vipadus, aka Seviper, and Zangoose will be part of the event, but there will be also some other regional surprises. So that is definitely some good news for us trainers looking to fill out our Pokedex. Now, if we scroll back up to the discussion about the 75 species of Pokemon and the habitats, fire, water, plants, fighting, and friendship. We do know that there are 3 regional Pokemon, the elemental monkeys, I believe they may be referred to, each being a fire, water, and grass type Pokemon respectively. This could be some indication of what the regional Pokemon may be, having the Fire Monkey available during the Fire Habitats Hour. Simipour could be featured during the Water Pokemon Habitat Hour. And then in the Plant Hour, probably truly translated into grass, that would be the Simisage for the Plant Hour. Fighting, because they are rivals and typically are not in the same region, that could feature potentially Seviper and Zangoose, because they are arch nemesis, always at each other's throats. And then for friendship, as we've discussed previously, I'll put a link up to a video where we had the release information about Mega Evolutions coming to Pokemon Go. In Pokemon lore, Mega Evolutions occurred because of an exceptionally strong bond between a Pokemon and its trainer. Now that bond could be translated to friendship, and that could be reflected here, or that could be something mentioned later in the interview that we'll be discussing in a moment. Later in the interview, it was asked, in the press briefing about the Go Fest, it was said that EP, probably meant to be experience points, will have more value in the future. Wouldn't a possible level increase be a good start for the Go Fest? Michael responds, we designed the Pokemon Go Fest so that it is accessible for all players at every level. We didn't want some people to be marginalized. This is also one of our core elements of live events. We wanted to make sure that if you created your account just this week and go to such an event, you will have as much fun as someone who's been playing for 3 years. So for the Go Fest, a level increase would not be what would fit the experience, but there will be more news to come. So if you have not heard, there has been discussion as well as some leaks and some data mines about potential increase to the level cap in Pokemon Go. Currently, the level cap is level 40 for trainers. If you have a Best Buddy boost on your Pokemon, they can be powered up to level 40, and with that Best Buddy boost, they can go up to the equivalent of a level 41 Pokemon. But there seems to be some indication that that level cap is going to be increased here in the near future. Now, we did get some indication of a level cap increase in a recent data mine in April. Pokeminers produced this infographic. I will put a link to the infographic where it's available. It was posted on the TheSilphRoad's subreddit. The Game Master was updated to include level up rewards for levels 41 through 50. Up to this point, there were only reflected level up rewards for level 40 because that was the previous, or current rather, level cap for Pokemon trainers. But it raises the question, why would level up rewards be added for levels 41 through 50 if there wasn't an intention to increase the level cap for trainers? So when Mr. Steranka says that there will be more news to come, we know that in the near future, hopefully, we will be getting some idea with regard to what that level cap increase is going to look like for trainers. So for here and now, if you can find them, be holding on to those lucky eggs. We don't know whether or not the XP that you're gaining currently, if you're at level 40, if your post level 40 XP increases are going to count towards the level cap, or if only newly added experience after the level cap is increased will actually count. Now, there would be riots in the street if the individuals that are in the 100, 200, 300, even up to 1 billion experience points up to this point don't get credit for that time invested since hitting level 40. Nevertheless, we don't know what Niantic is going to do once the level cap is ultimately increased. And then finally, the other major item discussed during the interview was discussion about Niantic Social. Now, Niantic Social should appear before the Go Fest is asked by MeinMMO. Can you explain why this feature will be so important at the Go Fest? His response, the launch of Niantic Social is supposed to show which of your friends is online, and given the circumstances surrounding the Go Fest this year, we thought that it would be incredibly helpful to organize things like remote raids. That will be one of our most important points at the Go Fest this year. So it's important to recognize that he mentioned specifically remote raids. Now, with regard to remote raiding, currently you can engage in a remote raid if you see a gym on the overworld map. You can click on it from a distance further away than what a traditional raid pass would enable you to join the raid. Or if you see a gym within a certain distance on your nearby menu, you can join raids that way. Here, Niantic Support tweeted, trainers, our newest update, version 0.179, is in the early stages of rolling out, and with it, you will be able to see a toggle for remote invitations in the settings menu. However, while the toggle is there, the feature itself is not live yet. Please stay tuned to our official channels in the coming weeks for updates. So they do say coming weeks for this to ultimately be introduced. Now, that final hour of habitats that was discussed previously, we had fire, water, grass, battling, and friendship. Now, it's very possible that during that 5th hour of the habitat rotation, we had fire, grass, water, battling, and friendship. That friendship could potentially be pointing to remote invitations being introduced in Pokemon Go. But those were the highlights from the interview with the director of global live events and MeinMMO. We're going to be seeing potentially shiny rates that we're going to be happy with, at least the yield of shinies from the Pokemon Go Fest. We're going to have 75 species of Pokemon appearing in Go Fest, and specifically they discuss those habitats rotating what spawns will be available. But more importantly, not just Seviper and Zangoose will be appearing as regionals, there will be a second regional surprise that we have to look forward to. Finally, Go Fest will include the introduction of some aspect of Niantic Social, probably in conjunction with remote invitations for raids. That would make sense because every year for Go Fest, there's some major introduction of a new feature. 3 years ago, it was raids, with the introduction of Lugia and Articuno at raids in Chicago. The following year, it was research with the introduction of Mew. Last year, close to the time of Go Fest, there was the introduction of trading. And now this year, we're looking at potentially remote raiding with invitations for raid lobby. So we've got a lot coming up in the next month. It is definitely looking to be a great experience this year for Pokemon Go Fest 2020. I do want to say thank you for sticking around until the end of the video. This video here will be a video recommended by YouTube, and this link here will be to a playlist of other Go Fest videos that we've covered here on the channel. But until next time, as always, happy catching.